The concern is that they're good at it, and people don't really have their arms around it. The Iranians have a first-rate intellectual and scientific community. They've learned a lot from the Russians. They're looking for ways to retaliate asymmetrically, and I think we've got to get our heads out of the sand and deal with this thing.
So they could do what to us?
To the U.S., they could attack U.S. corporates. They could attack U.S. financial markets, turning out the lights, interfering with software, hardware. They could conceivably begin to tamper with U.S. critical infrastructure, dams and power plants, though that's we know less about that. I think that the president is wise to put this off after Helsinki. There is a hurricane going on in this town, and bringing Vladimir Putin here right now would be a mistake. I think it's good to air out the dirty laundry, if there is any, on Mueller, and then deal with Vladimir Putin when it's well timed to deal with Vladimir Putin.
Especially because you say the Russians are training the Iranians when it comes to cyber capabilities, right?
The Russians are doing a lot of things that we should not like, from Ukraine to Syria to Iran. It is not time to make nice to Mr. Putin quite yet. Let's wait and see what he did to the election, and then start anew next year when we got all the facts.
I'm going to sound naive on this, but you say how good they are at this, the Iranians and even the Russians. But hey, we're good at this too. I mean, we're not just going to roll over. If we're talking about this publicly, I would like to think that we're thinking about it in the back rooms as well, and preparing for it and protecting against it, aren't we?
Yeah, that's a real good question. So when I talk to the people who are the real, cyber gurus, they think that the Russians in particular are probably about as good as we are, and maybe a little bit better at cyber. Now, that's a tie, but it's not really a tie, because we're much more connected to the Internet of Things. We do smart cities, everything is hooked up to the web. That's not true in Russia, and it's not really true in Iran. So maybe we're equally good, but we're much more vulnerable, and the math doesn't work so good on that.
In terms of assuming that Iran has this arsenal, Cliff, I mean, have they launched a cyber attack on a corporation? I mean, what are some of the examples of their capabilities that we should be watching very closely?
We think they've hit Saudi Arabia pretty well, a number of firms. They can do it. We should be watching for, as this U.S.-Iran war of words heats up, we should harden, and we should watch out for attacks on U.S. companies and on the markets. I think this is a potentially relatively fingerprint-free way. Did the Koreans do it? Did the Iranians do it? Unless they leave Persian letters on their cyber attacks, and they're probably too smart for that, it's going to be tough. So it's a way for them to get back at us without necessarily facing a military conflict in the Strait of Hormuz, which also might happen.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.